The rain pounded against the tin roof of Mike's auto shop like an impatient customer. It had been a long day filled with squeaky brakes, burnt-out transmissions, and customers who swore the strange noise their car was making yesterday had mysteriously vanished the moment they pulled into his garage. Mike wiped the grease from his calloused hands with a rag that had seen better days, much like everything else in his small shop. "That's it for today," he called out to his nephew Ray, who was sweeping up metal shavings near the back. "Lock up when you're done, will ya? I've got to pick up some medicine for Grandma before the pharmacy closes." Ray nodded, leaning on his broom for a moment. "Sure thing, Uncle Mike. How's she doing anyway?" Mike's face softened. "About the same. The new pills are expensive, but the doctor says they might help with the pain." He didn't mention the stack of bills sitting on his kitchen table or the final notice from the bank about his garage loan. Some burdens weren't meant to be shared. The old clock on the wall, a relic from his father's days running the place, showed just past 7. Mike grabbed his worn leather jacket from the hook by the door, the one with the patch on the elbow his mom had sewn on years ago. Before heading out, he glanced around the shop, the tools arranged meticulously on pegboards, the lifts that groaned a little more each year, the framed picture of his dad standing proudly in front of the garage on opening day, 30 years ago. This place wasn't just where he worked. It was his heritage, his responsibility, and lately his biggest worry. Outside, the rain had turned the world gray. Mike pulled his jacket collar up and made a dash for his old pickup truck, the same one he'd been promising himself to fix up one of these days for the past 5 years. The engine coughed twice before reluctantly coming to life. He was about halfway to the pharmacy, wipers struggling against the downpour when he spotted it. A sleek black car pulled awkwardly to the side of the road, hazard lights blinking desperately in the growing darkness. Most people would have driven past, especially in this weather, especially at this hour. But Mike wasn't most people. With a sigh that fogged up his windshield, he pulled over. The pharmacy would close in 20 minutes, but some things were more important than schedules. His dad had taught him that. As Mike approached the stranded vehicle, he could make out a figure inside, the glow of a phone illuminating a frustrated face. He tapped gently on the window, trying not to startle whoever was inside. The window lowered, revealing a woman in her 40s wearing what Mike guessed was an expensive suit, though he knew as much about fashion as she probably knew about carburetors. "Car trouble?" Mike asked, rain dripping from his baseball cap. The woman's face showed equal parts relief and suspicion. "Yes, it just died while I was driving. I've called 3 towing companies, but the earliest anyone can come is 2 hours from now." Her voice held the tight control of someone used to solving problems but finding themselves at the mercy of circumstances they couldn't manage. "I'm a mechanic," Mike offered, pointing back toward his truck. "I could take a look if you want. Might save you the tow." She hesitated, studying him, a stranger in a rainstorm offering help. "That's very kind, but I wouldn't want to trouble you." Mike shrugged. "It's no trouble. I was headed to the pharmacy, but they'll be closed by now anyway." He extended his hand. "I'm Mike. I run the garage about 2 miles back." "Lisa," she replied, shaking his hand briefly. "I'm the CEO of TechVision. I was on my way to an emergency board meeting when everything just stopped." Mike nodded, already moving to the front of the car. "Pop the hood for me?" The hood released with a click, and Mike lifted it, positioning himself to block as much rain as possible from the engine. He pulled out his phone and switched on its flashlight, running experienced eyes over the components. "When did it start acting up?" he called out. Lisa had stepped out of the car now, holding a small umbrella that did little against the sideways rain. "It was fine until about 10 minutes ago. Then the engine made a weird sound and everything shut down." Mike's fingers moved methodically, checking connections, testing wires. The rain soaked through his jacket, but he barely noticed. This was the language he spoke most fluently, the quiet conversation between man and machine. "Ah," he said after a few minutes. "I see the problem." He pointed to a corroded battery connection and what looked like a loose alternator belt. "You've got 2 issues here. The good news is I can fix them both on the spot. The bad news is you'll be standing in the rain watching me do it." Lisa looked at her watch, then at her phone, which showed no reception bars. "How long will it take?" 20 minutes, give or take." She seemed to make a quick calculation in her head. "That's still faster than waiting for a tow truck and finding a garage that's open at this hour." She smiled for the first time since he'd approached her. "I'd be very grateful." Mike went back to his truck and returned with a small toolbox. Always carry the basics, he explained, opening it to reveal a neatly organized collection of wrenches, pliers, and electrical tape. He worked quickly and efficiently, his hands moving with the certainty that comes from years of practice. Lisa stood nearby, holding her phone up occasionally in a futile attempt to find signal. "Big meeting?" Mike asked, mainly to distract her from the frustration he could see building in her expression. "Very. We're finalizing an acquisition that could either save or sink the company." She sighed. 40 employees and their families are counting on this deal going through. Mike nodded, understanding the weight of responsibility. It wasn't so different from what he felt every time he looked at Ray or his grandma, people depending on him to keep things running. "Your company make anything I'd know about?" he asked, grunting slightly as he tightened a stubborn bolt. Lisa's expression softened. "Probably not. We develop software for medical devices." She paused. "Actually, our latest project is a system that helps doctors monitor heart patients remotely. My father had 3 heart attacks before I was 20. That's why I started the company." Mike glanced up at her. There was a story there, one that reminded him they weren't just a stranded executive and a mechanic in the rain, but 2 people with histories that had led them to this exact moment. "My grandma's got heart problems," he shared. "Gets winded just going from her bed to the kitchen these days." "I'm sorry to hear that," Lisa said, and she seemed genuinely concerned. As Mike continued working, Lisa told him more about her company and the challenges of keeping a small tech firm afloat in an industry dominated by giants. In turn, he found himself talking about his garage, about taking over after his dad passed, about his hopes to expand someday and hire more people from the neighborhood. "Almost done," Mike announced, connecting the last wire. "Try starting it now." Lisa slid back into the driver's seat and turned the key. The engine coughed once, twice, then hummed to life. "You did it!" she exclaimed, relief washing over her face. Mike closed the hood with a satisfied pat. "It should get you to your meeting and back home, but you'll want to get that alternator replaced soon." "It's starting to go." Lisa stepped out of the car again. "How much do I owe you?" she asked, reaching for her purse. Mike shook his head. "Don't worry about it, please, I insist. You're soaking wet, you missed your errand, and you just saved me from a disaster." Mike hesitated. The truth was, he needed the money. The pharmacy would open again tomorrow, but the grace period on his loan payment wouldn't extend another day. Still, something inside him, his father's voice perhaps, wouldn't let him take money for what felt like the right thing to do. "Tell you what," he said finally, "if you're ever in the area again and your car needs work, bring it to my shop. Harris Auto Repair, about 2 miles back that way." He pointed down the road. "First oil change is on the house." Lisa studied him for a moment, clearly puzzled by his refusal. "At least take my card," she said, reaching into her wallet and handing him a sleek business card. "If you ever need anything, please call me." Mike took the card, tucked it into his pocket with a nod. "You better get going. Don't want to be late for your meeting." As Lisa got back into her car, she rolled down the window one last time. "Thank you, Mike, truly." He waved it off. "Good luck with your deal." Mike stood in the rain, watching as her taillights disappeared around a bend in the road. Only then did he feel the cold seeping through his soaked clothes, the ache in his fingers from working in the chill. He trudged back to his truck, wondering if the pharmacy across town might still be open. Knowing it probably wasn't, as he drove away, Mike couldn't have known that the simple kindness he'd shown that evening, the kind his father had taught him was just part of being human, would set in motion events that would change the course of his life. For now, he was just a mechanic heading home in the rain, the business card of a CEO tucked forgotten in his pocket, unaware of the connection that had been forged under stormy skies and the hood of a broken-down car. Mike's alarm clock buzzed angrily at 5:30 the next morning, same as it had every workday for the past 12 years. He reached over to silence it, his muscles still aching from hunching over that stranded car in the rain last night. The pharmacy had indeed been closed by the time he finally made it there. Grandma would have to wait another day for her medicine. The floorboards creaked under his feet as he shuffled to the bathroom of the small 2-bedroom house they all shared. In the mirror, tired eyes stared back at him. At 42, Mike's face had collected lines that told stories of both laughter and worry, though lately, the worry lines seemed to be winning. "Morning. Uncle Mike," Ray's voice called from the kitchen. The 19-year-old was already up, making coffee strong enough to stand a spoon in it, just like Mike had taught him. "Made some toast." Want some? Mike smiled despite his fatigue. Ray had come to live with them after his mom, Mike's sister, had passed away 3 years ago. The boy had his mother's kind eyes and his uncle's knack for fixing things. Thanks, kid, Mike said, accepting a chipped mug and a plate with slightly burnt toast. You're up early. Ray shrugged. Thought I'd open the shop today. You looked beat when you got home last night. Mike took a grateful sip of the bitter coffee. Got held up helping someone with car trouble. He didn't mention that it was the CEO of some tech company or that he'd done the work for free. Some things just weren't worth explaining. Pharmacy closed? Ray asked. Knowing his uncle's errand, Mike nodded. I'll go during lunch break today. A faint call came from the back bedroom. That's Grandma, Ray said. I'll check on her. You finish eating? As Ray disappeared down the hall, Mike pulled out his phone to check his schedule for the day. 6 oil changes, 2 brake jobs, and Mrs. Patterson's ancient station wagon that made a noise like a dying whale when she turned left. A full day, but not full enough. The garage needed more business if they were going to make next month's payment. By 7, Mike and Ray had arrived at Harris Auto Repair. The morning light revealed all the little imperfections Mike usually tried not to see. The faded sign with peeling paint. The crack running along the front window. The outdated equipment that he kept running through sheer determination and creative fix-it skills. I'll get the coffee pot going, Ray said, heading for the small break room. Mike nodded absently, already sorting through yesterday's mail. Bill, advertisement, bill, and a final notice from the bank. He sighed, tucking it into his pocket without opening it. He knew what it said. The bell over the door jingled as their first customer of the day walked in. Mr. Chen from the Chinese restaurant down the street. His delivery van needed new wiper blades, a simple job but welcome income. Morning, Mr. Chen. Mike greeted him with a handshake. Mike, good morning. Terrible rain last night, yes? My wipers, no good. Mr. Chen mimicked failing wipers with his hands. As Mike wrote up the work order, more customers began to arrive. The morning unfolded in a familiar rhythm of oil changes and small talk. By noon, his hands were covered in grease and his mind temporarily free from financial worries. This was what he loved. Solving problems, working with his hands, seeing the immediate results of his labor. Around 1 o'clock, Mike was elbow-deep in Mrs. Patterson's station wagon when he heard the bell jingle again. Ray's voice floated over from the front. Can I help you? A woman's voice answered, familiar, though Mike couldn't immediately place it. I'm looking for Mike? He helped me with my car last night. Mike straightened up, wiping his hands on his coveralls as he walked to the front. There, standing in his shop looking somewhat out of place in her tailored pantsuit, was Lisa from last night. Well, Mike said, surprise evident in his voice. Didn't expect to see you again so soon. Car giving you trouble already? Lisa smiled and Mike noticed it transformed her entire face, softening the businesslike exterior. No, the car's running perfectly thanks to you. I actually came by to properly thank you. She held up a paper bag. I brought lunch. I hope you haven't eaten yet. Ray raised an eyebrow at Mike, a silent question passing between them. This is Lisa, Mike explained. Her car broke down in the storm last night. And your uncle saved both my car and an incredibly important business meeting, Lisa added. The least I could do was bring lunch. The paper bag, it turned out, contained sandwiches from an upscale deli downtown, the kind of place where a single sandwich probably cost more than Mike usually spent on a day's worth of food. Ray, why don't you take your break now? Mike suggested. Mrs. Patterson's car still needs that belt replaced. Once Ray had disappeared into the garage, Mike gestured toward the small table in the corner of the waiting area. Not exactly five-star dining, he joked. Lisa set out the food, which included not just sandwiches, but also some kind of fancy potato salad and cookies that looked homemade. Did you make it to the pharmacy? She asked as they sat down. Mike was surprised she remembered. No, it was closed by the time I finished with your car. I'm sorry about that. She seemed genuinely concerned. You mentioned it was for your grandmother? Mike nodded, unwrapping his sandwich. Heart medication. It's all right, though. I went this morning. They ate in comfortable silence for a moment before Lisa spoke again. So how long have you owned this place? 12 years officially. But I've been working here since I was Ray's age. It was my dad's shop before mine. Family business, Lisa nodded appreciatively. There's something special about that. My father was a cardiologist, which is what inspired my company's focus on heart monitoring technology. As they talked, Mike found himself oddly comfortable with this woman, who clearly came from a different world than his. She asked thoughtful questions about the garage, about the neighborhood, about how long certain repairs typically took. Not just polite small talk, but genuine interest. So, how did your meeting go? Mike asked eventually. Curious despite himself, Lisa's face brightened. We closed the deal, and honestly, I might not have made it without your help. She paused, looking around the shop with new eyes. This is a nice place you have here. How's business? Something in her tone made Mike hesitate. Was this just casual conversation? Or was there more to her question? He opted for honesty. Could be better, he admitted. This neighborhood's changing. Lots of the old customers have moved away, and the new folks with their fancy hybrid cars take them to the dealership. He shrugged. We get by. Lisa seemed to consider this. Have you thought about specializing? Maybe becoming certified for electric vehicle repair? That's where the industry is headed. Mike's laugh held little humor. Sure, I've thought about it. Also thought about winning the lottery. He gestured around the shop. Training costs money. New equipment costs more money. And time spent learning is time not spent earning. Lisa didn't seem put off by his bluntness. Instead, she reached into her purse and pulled out a business card, different from the one she'd given him last night. This one had a handwritten number on the back. This is my personal cell, she explained, sliding it across the table. I owe you for last night. If there's ever anything I can do to help. Mike looked at the card but didn't pick it up. You don't owe me anything. It was just the right thing to do. Exactly, Lisa said with unexpected intensity. That's exactly why I'm here. Do you know how rare it is to find someone who does the right thing without expecting anything in return? You could have charged me triple the going rate last night. I would have paid it without question. Instead, you refused payment completely. Mike felt uncomfortable under her admiring gaze. Anyone would have done the same. No, Lisa said firmly. They wouldn't. I waited by that road for almost an hour before you came along. Dozens of cars passed by. Only you stopped. She pushed the card closer to him. Please take it. I mean what I said about helping. Before Mike could respond, the shop phone rang. Ray called from the garage. Uncle Mike? It's the parts supplier about that special order. Mike stood, suddenly remembering the cylinder head they needed for the Anderson job. I should take that. It's important. Lisa stood as well, gathering the lunch wrappers. Of course. I've taken up enough of your time. As Mike headed for the phone, he paused and picked up Lisa's card, tucking it into his pocket with a nod of thanks. He didn't expect to use it, but the gesture seemed important to her. After the call, Mike walked Lisa to her car, the same black sedan from last night, now gleaming in the afternoon sun. Thanks for lunch, he said simply. Thank you for last night, she replied. Then after a moment's hesitation, she added, You know, my company has a small fleet of vehicles for our sales team. They currently go to the dealership for service, but she left the suggestion hanging in the air. Mike smiled, understanding the offer. I appreciate that, really. As Lisa drove away, Ray appeared at Mike's side. So, fancy lady in a fancy car brings you fancy lunch. There a story there I should know about? Mike chuckled, heading back into the shop. Just helped her out in the rain last night. Nothing more to it than that. But as he returned to Mrs. Patterson's station wagon, Mike found himself thinking about Lisa's suggestion regarding electric vehicle certification, about her company's fleet, about the possibilities that seemed to hover just beyond reach. He pushed the thoughts away, focusing instead on the immediate problem at hand. A worn belt that needed replacing, a car that needed fixing, a business that needed saving. The business card in his pocket, however, felt strangely significant, as though it represented something more than just a way to say thank you. What that something might be, Mike wasn't yet sure. 2 weeks had passed since Lisa's unexpected lunch visit, and Mike had almost forgotten about the business card tucked in his wallet. Almost, but not quite. Life had a way of pushing aside what-ifs and maybes when reality came knocking, and reality had been knocking pretty hard lately. The ancient diagnostic machine, a relic from his father's time that Mike had nursed along for years with spare parts and stubborn determination, had finally given up the ghost. 3 days ago it had sparked, smoked, and died while checking Mr. Wilson's truck. Without it, Mike couldn't properly diagnose newer cars, which meant turning away customers. What about that loan you were talking about? Ray asked as they sat in the quiet shop. It was Tuesday afternoon and they hadn't had a customer in hours. Mike shook his head, leaning back in the creaky office chair. Bank turned it down yesterday, said the business doesn't show enough growth potential. The words tasted bitter in his mouth. 20 years my dad ran this place. 12 more I've kept it going. But on paper we're just not worth the risk. Ray frowned, his young face serious beyond his years. We could sell something? Maybe that old parts inventory in the back? Already looked into it. Might get us a couple $100, but a new diagnostic system costs $8,000. Might as well be $1 million. Mike tried to keep the defeat out of his voice for Ray's sake. The bell above the door jingled, and they both looked up hopefully. But it was only the mailman with another stack of bills and flyers. Thanks, Pete, Mike said, taking the mail. Wish I had better news for you, Pete replied with a knowing look. He'd been delivering mail to the shop since Mike's father's time and knew what those official-looking envelopes meant. Hang in there. After Pete left, Mike flipped through the mail. Electric bill, water bill, supplier invoice, and, his heart sank, an envelope from the property management company. He didn't need to open it to know what it said. Rent was going up again, just like the rumors around the neighborhood had warned. The whole area was being revitalized, which was just a fancy way of saying that working folks like him were being pushed out to make way for trendy coffee shops and boutique stores. He opened it anyway, confirming his fears. The rent would double in 60 days. Double. Mike's hand trembled slightly as he set the letter down. Bad news? Ray asked quietly. Mike considered sugarcoating it, but decided against it. Ray wasn't a child anymore. Landlord's doubling the rent. We've got 2 months to figure something out. Ray's eyes widened. Double, can they do that? They own the building, so yeah, they can. Mike tried to think through options, but his mind felt foggy with worry. The garage had always operated on thin margins. Some months were better than others, but there was never enough extra to save for emergencies like this. Between the broken diagnostic machine, Grandma's increasing medical bills, and now this rent hike, the math simply didn't work anymore. Mike stood up abruptly. I need some air.
Can you lock up if I'm not back by 5?
Outside, the late afternoon sun cast long shadows across the parking lot. Mike walked without direction, his thoughts churning. He'd always prided himself on being a problem solver. Cars came in broken. He fixed them. But this felt unfixable. His wandering brought him to the small park 3 blocks from the shop. He sat heavily on a bench watching a group of kids playing soccer, with makeshift goals made from backpacks. Their shouts and laughter seemed to come from a different world than the one closing in around him. Mike's phone buzzed in his pocket. Probably Ray wondering where he'd gone. But the screen showed a number he didn't recognize. Hello? He answered cautiously. Is this Mike Harris? A woman's voice, professional but warm, speaking. Who's this? This is Donna from University Hospital. I'm calling about your grandmother, Eleanor Harris. Mike's heart dropped. Is she okay? What happened? She's stable now, Donna reassured him quickly. She had some difficulty breathing this afternoon and your neighbor brought her in. The doctor has ordered some tests and we'd like to keep her overnight for observation. I'll be right there, Mike said, already standing up. Tell her I'm on my way. The hospital was a 15-minute drive across town. Mike called Ray from the truck, explaining the situation and asking him to close the shop and meet him there. By the time Mike arrived, his grandmother had been moved to a room and was hooked up to monitors that beeped steadily. There's my handsome boy, Grandma Eleanor said weakly when Mike entered the room. Despite her fragile state, her eyes still held the same spark they'd had when she'd taught him to make pancakes as a child, or bandaged his scraped knees. Hey, Grandma, Mike said, taking her thin hand in his. Heard you gave Mrs. Thompson quite a scare. That old busybody, Eleanor huffed, though there was fondness in her voice. I just got a little winded is all. No need for all this fuss. A doctor entered, clipboard in hand. Mr. Harris? I'm Dr. Patel. Your grandmother experienced an episode of acute heart failure. We've stabilized her, but I'm concerned about her current medication regimen. Has she been taking the new prescription I wrote last month? Mike hesitated. We've had to space them out a bit. The new ones are expensive and our insurance doesn't cover much. Dr. Patel's expression remained neutral, but Mike felt the judgment anyway. What kind of grandson couldn't afford his grandmother's medicine? I understand financial concerns, but with her condition, consistent medication is crucial. Dr. Patel spoke quietly so Eleanor couldn't overhear. We'll keep her overnight to monitor her and adjust her treatment. Do you have any questions? Mike had 1,000 questions, but none the doctor could answer. How was he supposed to pay for all this? How could he keep the garage open? How could he take care of Ray and Grandma when everything was falling apart? Instead, he just shook his head. Thank you, doctor. After Dr. Patel left, Ray arrived, bringing Grandma's favorite blanket from home. The three of them sat together, making small talk that carefully avoided any mention of money or the future. Eventually, Eleanor drifted off to sleep, her breathing more even than before. You should head home, Mike told Ray. Get some rest. I'll stay with her tonight. Ray looked like he wanted to argue but nodded. Call if anything changes, okay? After Ray left, Mike sat in the uncomfortable hospital chair, watching his grandmother sleep. The steady beeping of the monitors and the occasional footsteps in the hallway created a rhythm that almost lulled him to sleep. Almost. His mind kept circling back to the same impossible equation. Rising costs and dwindling income. The garage that had supported his family for 2 generations was slipping away. Without it, how would he support Ray and Grandma? What would happen to his employees? To Joe, who had 3 kids and a mortgage, or to Pete, who was saving for his daughter's college? Around midnight, a nurse came to check Eleanor's vitals. She's doing well, she assured Mike. Try to get some sleep yourself. That chair reclines a bit if you push on the back. Mike thanked her and tried to get comfortable in the chair. As he shifted, his wallet fell from his pocket. When he picked it up, a small white card fell out, Lisa's business card with her personal number. He stared at it in the dim light of the hospital room. Pride had always been his companion, sometimes his only companion. His father had taught him to stand on his own 2 feet to solve his own problems. Asking for help felt like failure. But as he looked at his grandmother's frail form in the hospital bed, Mike realized something important. Pride wouldn't pay medical bills. Pride wouldn't save the garage. Pride wouldn't secure Ray's future. With trembling fingers, Mike pulled out his phone. It was after midnight, far too late to call anyone. He should wait until morning if he called at all. But the thought of waiting through another night of uncertainty was unbearable. Instead, he sent a simple text. This is Mike Harris, the mechanic who helped you in the rain. Sorry to message so late. Could we talk tomorrow? It's important. He stared at the sent message, already regretting it. What was he thinking? Lisa's offer to help had likely been nothing more than politeness, the kind of empty gesture people made when they felt momentarily grateful. She had probably forgotten all about him by now. Mike put the phone away and tried again to sleep. He had nearly drifted off when a soft buzz startled him. He fumbled for the phone, careful not to wake his grandmother. The screen glowed with a new message. Of course. I'm glad you reached out. I have a meeting until 11. But I could meet you for lunch at 12. Would the cafe across from your garage work? And Mike, whatever it is, we'll figure it out. Mike read the message twice, not quite believing the immediacy of the response or the sincerity it seemed to convey. We'll figure it out. Such simple words, yet they did something to the knot of worry in his chest, loosening it just enough to let him breathe. He typed back, Lunch at 12 works. Thank you. As he set the phone down, Mike looked again at his sleeping grandmother. For the first time in weeks, he felt something other than dread when thinking about tomorrow. It wasn't quite hope, he didn't dare call it that yet. But it was its distant cousin, possibility. Morning would bring what it would bring. The garage was still in trouble. The bills were still piling up. His grandmother was still in a hospital bed. But somehow in this quiet moment, Mike allowed himself to believe that perhaps, just perhaps, there was a way forward that he hadn't seen yet. He closed his eyes, and this time sleep came. Morning came too quickly at the hospital. Mike woke with a stiff neck from the awkward angle of the chair, his back protesting as he straightened. Grandma Eleanor was already awake, watching him with knowing eyes. You look terrible, she informed him bluntly. Mike managed to smile. Good morning to you too. You didn't have to stay all night, she continued, though her hand reached for his with surprising strength. I'm not going anywhere just yet. I know, Mike said, squeezing her hand. How are you feeling? Like I'm 82, she quipped. Which is exactly what I am, so no complaints. Dr. Patel arrived shortly after, bringing cautiously good news. Grandma was stable and could go home today, provided she strictly followed her medication schedule and came back for a follow-up next week. As the doctor listed off additional prescriptions, Mike nodded while mentally calculating the cost. It was like adding weights to a sinking ship. "I'll have the discharge papers ready by noon," Dr. Patel concluded. "Any questions?" "Can I get her home, then come back for the papers?" Mike asked, suddenly remembering his lunch meeting with Lisa. "I have an important appointment at 12. The doctor agreed, and Mike called Ray, who arrived to help take Grandma home. Once they were settled, Mike rushed to shower and change. He hadn't been this nervous about a meeting since his bank loan interview, which hadn't exactly gone well. But this was different. This wasn't a formal application with a stranger. This was Lisa, who had seen something in him worth helping. Still, as he approached the cafe across from his garage, doubt crept in. What exactly was he going to ask for? A loan? A job for one of his mechanics? He had no plan, just desperation dressed up in his cleanest shirt. The cafe was a recent addition to the neighborhood, part of the revitalization that was driving up rents. Mike had never been inside before. It wasn't the kind of place a mechanic usually stopped for lunch. With its artisanal sandwiches that cost 3 times what he'd pay at the diner down the street. Lisa was already seated at a corner table, dressed in business attire but somehow looking more approachable than she had in her office clothes the first time they met. She spotted him and waved him over. "Mike," she greeted him, standing to shake his hand. "It's good to see you again, though I get the feeling this isn't a social call." Mike appreciated her directness. "No, it's not. And I'm sorry about texting so late." "Don't be. Sit, please. I ordered coffee, but we can get food too if you'd like." Mike sat, declining food. His stomach was too knotted for eating. "I'm not really sure where to start," he admitted. "The beginning usually works," Lisa suggested with a gentle smile. "Or wherever it hurts the most." Something about her phrasing unlocked the words. Mike found himself explaining everything: the broken diagnostic machine, the doubling rent, his grandmother's hospitalization, the rejected bank loan. Each problem seemed to lead into the next, creating a perfect storm that threatened to sweep away everything he'd worked for. "The shop has been in my family for over 30 years, he concluded, staring into his untouched coffee. "My dad built it from nothing. He taught me everything I know, and now I'm about to lose it all." The admission felt like failure spoken aloud. Lisa had listened without interrupting, her expression thoughtful rather than pitying. When Mike finished, she was quiet for a moment. "What do you need most urgently?" she finally asked. The question caught Mike off guard. He'd expected vague sympathy or maybe polite regret. Well, the diagnostic equipment is killing us. Without it, we can't work on newer cars. But even if I had that, the rent increase would put us under in 2 months." Lisa nodded, making notes on a small pad. "And your grandmother's medical bills?" "Those aren't going away either," Mike sighed. "Look, I'm not asking for charity. I don't even know what I'm asking for. He struggled to find the words. "You're asking for help," Lisa said simply, "which is exactly what you should do when you need it." She set down her pen. "Can I be honest with you, Mike?" He nodded, bracing himself. "When you helped me that night in the rain, I was on my way to a meeting that would determine whether 40 people kept their jobs. My company had been struggling, and we needed this acquisition to go through. If I'd missed that meeting, those jobs would have been lost." She leaned forward. "You didn't just help me change a tire. You helped save 40 families from uncertainty, and you did it without a second thought, without asking for anything in return." Mike shifted uncomfortably. "Anyone would have—" "No," Lisa interrupted firmly. "Not anyone. Not even most people. What you did was exceptional, and I've been thinking about it ever since." She closed her notebook. "I have a proposal for you, but I need to see your shop first." "Really see it? Are you free now?" Confused but curious, Mike led Lisa across the street to Harris Auto Repair. The place was quiet, with Ray manning the counter while Joe worked on a solitary car in the bay. The emptiness of the shop highlighted its decline. "This is it," Mike said with a hint of defensiveness. "Not much to look at, I know." Lisa walked slowly around the space, asking questions about their workflow, examining the ancient equipment, talking briefly with Ray and Joe. She seemed particularly interested in the wall of photos Mike's father had started, pictures of customers with their cars, spanning decades of service to the community. "You do brake jobs, oil changes, engine work?" she asked. Everything, Mike confirmed. From tire rotation to complete rebuilds. Or we did, until the diagnostic system died. Lisa nodded, continuing her tour. After about 20 minutes, she turned to Mike with a decisive expression. I'd like to make you an offer, but I want to be clear about something first. This isn't charity. This is business. It benefits us both or it doesn't happen. Understand? Mike nodded cautiously. TechVision has a fleet of 26 vehicles that our sales team and executives use. Currently, they're serviced at the dealership across town, which costs us a fortune and takes forever. She gestured around the shop. I'd like to contract Harris Auto Repair as our exclusive service provider. Mike blinked, processing her words. All 26 vehicles? Regular maintenance, repairs, everything. But that would require you to get certified for our newer hybrid models and update your equipment. She named a monthly retainer figure that made Mike's eyes widen. That would be guaranteed income, separate from the actual repair costs. In exchange, our vehicles get priority service. That's generous, Mike said carefully. It's practical, Lisa corrected. The dealership charges us 3 times what you would, and their service is impersonal. My team would rather work with someone who cares about the community. She paused. There's more. I've been looking to invest in local businesses with growth potential. I'd like to discuss becoming a silent partner in Harris Auto Repair. Mike stared at her. A partner? You want to buy into an auto shop that's about to go under? I want to invest in a business with a 30-year history of excellence and customer loyalty, Lisa countered. A business run by someone who stops in the rain to help strangers. That's not going under. That's just hitting a rough patch. She laid out the rest of her proposal. Capital investment for new equipment and training, help negotiating with the landlord using her company's leverage, and assistance setting up a proper website and digital customer system. In return, I'd take a 20% stake in the business. You'd maintain full operational control, Lisa finished. What do you think? Mike's mind raced. It seemed too good to be true. Exactly what he needed, appearing exactly when he needed it most. Why would you do this? He asked, still suspicious of windfalls. Lisa's expression softened. My father was a doctor who believed in helping people first and worrying about payment later. When he died, I found boxes of thank you letters from patients who could never afford to pay him. That taught me something important about value. She looked at the wall of customer photos. Some things matter more than money. But with the right support, you can have both. She extended her hand. Do we have a deal? Or do you need time to think about it? Mike looked around the shop. His father's legacy, his own life's work, Ray's future inheritance. Then he looked at Lisa, with her straightforward gaze and practical proposal that wasn't charity but partnership. I need to talk to my family first, he said finally. But I think we have a deal. The relief that washed over him was so intense it almost brought tears to his eyes. For the first time in months, the future held possibilities instead of just problems. I understand completely, Lisa said, handing him a folder. Here's everything in writing. Talk it over with your family. Have a lawyer look at it if you want. Call me when you've decided. As they walked back to the cafe where Lisa had parked, Mike found himself struggling to express his gratitude. I don't know how to thank you. Lisa stopped, turning to face him. You already did, Mike, that night in the rain? That was your thank you. You just didn't know who you were thanking yet. She smiled. Sometimes kindness works that way. It comes back to you from unexpected directions. Later that evening, as Mike explained the proposal to Ray and Grandma Eleanor at the kitchen table, he realized Lisa was right. The simple act of stopping to help a stranded motorist had set in motion events he could never have predicted. It wasn't magic or miracle, just the natural consequence of one human being helping another. So what do you think? He asked them after laying out all the details. Ray grinned. I think you should have helped more people in the rain. Grandma Eleanor reached over to pat Mike's hand. I think your father would be proud. Not just of the deal, but of the reason it came to you in the first place. And for the first time in a very long time, Mike Harris slept without worry, knowing that tomorrow held promise instead of dread. 1 year later, the morning sun streamed through the newly installed windows of Harris Auto Repair, casting long rectangles of light across the polished concrete floor. Mike wiped his hands on a clean shop rag as he finished inspecting the hybrid engine of one of TechVision's fleet vehicles. The new diagnostic system, top of the line and a far cry from the ancient machine it had replaced, beeped softly as it completed its analysis. "Looks good," Mike called to Joe, who was entering data into the shop's new computer system. "Just needs the regular maintenance. Tell Thomas his car will be ready by 3. Joe nodded, his fingers tapping expertly on the keyboard. A year ago, Joe had barely known how to send an email. Now he managed the shop's digital scheduling system like he'd been born to it. Mike stepped back to take in the transformed space around him. The same bones remained, his father's shop was still recognizable in the layout and the spirit of the place, but everything else had changed. New equipment lined the walls. A comfortable waiting area welcomed customers with fresh coffee and Wi-Fi. And most importantly, all 3 service bays were full, with 2 more vehicles waiting their turn outside. The bell above the door chimed, and Mike turned to see Ray entering with a cardboard tray of coffee cups. "Morning," Ray greeted, handing cups to Mike and Joe. "Grandma sent these over. Said the guys working hard deserve the good stuff, not that brown water from the waiting room." Mike smiled at the mention of his grandmother. A year had transformed her life as well. With proper medication that they could now afford and less stress about the future, Eleanor had rallied remarkably. She'd even started volunteering 3 mornings a week at the community center, teaching younger seniors how to use smartphones. "How's the studying going?" Mike asked, nodding toward the textbook tucked under Ray's arm. Ray's face lit up. "Really good. Professor thinks I've got a shot at that engineering internship next summer." That was another change the year had brought. Ray had enrolled in the local community college's mechanical engineering program. Between his classes and his work at the garage, the young man, Mike corrected himself, was thriving. "Where's Pete?" Mike asked, noticing their newest employee was missing. "Picking up parts for the Anderson job," Joe replied. "Should be back any minute." Pete had joined the team 6 months ago, a neighborhood kid with a natural talent for engines but few opportunities. Like Ray, he was working and studying, determined to become a certified mechanic. Mike saw a lot of himself in Pete, the same hunger to learn, the same satisfaction in fixing broken things. The phone rang, and Joe answered with the shop's new professional greeting. Mike turned his attention back to the hybrid engine, marveling again at how much had changed in 12 months. The partnership with Lisa had not only saved the garage but transformed it into something better than it had ever been. Speaking of Lisa, the bell chimed again, and this time it was Lisa herself who walked in, dressed in her usual business attire but with the relaxed smile that Mike had come to know well. "Just the man I was looking for," she said, approaching Mike. "Got a minute?" Mike wiped his hands again and nodded toward his small office in the back. Another new addition that gave him a quiet place to handle the business side of things. "Something wrong with the fleet?" he asked as they walked. Lisa shook her head. "No, quite the opposite. The board is thrilled with the maintenance costs. We're down 30% from what we were paying the dealership, and the vehicles are running better." In Mike's office, a simple space with a desk, 2 chairs, and a wall covered with his father's old photos alongside new ones. Lisa took a seat and placed a folder on the desk. "I wanted to show you the quarterly numbers myself," she said, opening the folder. "Harris Auto Repair is officially in the black and not by a small margin." Mike studied the financial statement she'd laid out. The columns of numbers told a story that still amazed him, a story of revival, of growth, of a future secured. "We've paid off the equipment loans 3 months early," Lisa continued, clearly pleased. "And the expansion fund is growing faster than projected." The expansion fund had been Lisa's idea. From the beginning, she'd seen potential for growth that Mike had been too close to the problems to envision. Now, with the shop's reputation growing and business booming, they were planning to open a second location across town. "I still can't believe how far we've come," Mike admitted, leaning back in his chair. "A year ago, I was ready to close the doors for good," Lisa smiled. "I remember. You looked like you were carrying the weight of the world when you walked into that cafe." "I was." Mike's voice softened with the memory. "My dad built this place from nothing. The thought of being the one to lose it, that was the hardest part. And now I think he'd be proud. Not just that we saved it, but that we're building something new without losing what made it special in the first place." Lisa nodded, understanding in her eyes. In the year they'd worked together, she'd come to appreciate the legacy that drove Mike, just as he'd come to respect the business acumen that made her so successful. "There's something else I wanted to discuss," Lisa said, pulling another document from her folder. TechVision is launching a new initiative. We're calling it the Community Apprenticeship Program. Mike raised an eyebrow, intrigued. We're partnering with the Unity College to create paid apprenticeships for students interested in technical fields. Auto repair is one of the tracks we're developing. She slid the paper across to him. We'd like Harris Auto Repair to be our flagship training site. You'd mentor 4 apprentices with the program covering their salaries and your time. Mike scanned the document, his mind immediately going to kids like Pete, talented but lacking opportunities. This could change lives, he said simply. Exactly. Like yours changed mine, Lisa replied. Mike looked up, surprised. I think you've got that backward. You're the one who saved my business, Lisa shook her head. That night in the rain taught me something important, Mike. For years, I'd been so focused on the bottom line that I'd forgotten why I started my company in the first place. To help people, like my father did. Watching you work in that downpour without complaint, refusing payment. It reminded me of what matters. She gestured around the office. This partnership has been as valuable to me as it has to you, just in different ways. TechVision's company culture has transformed. Our employee satisfaction is up, turnover is down, and our community engagement has generated more positive press than any marketing campaign could have. Mike hadn't considered that perspective before. He'd always seen himself as the beneficiary in their arrangement, not realizing that the impact had flowed in both directions. A knock at the office door interrupted them. Ray poked his head in. Sorry to bother you, but Mrs. Johnson is here about her car and Grandma just called. She wants to know if Lisa is staying for dinner. Mike looked questioningly at Lisa, who smiled. Wouldn't miss Eleanor's pot roast for anything. Tell her I'll bring dessert. After Ray left, Lisa gathered her papers. Another thing that's changed this year, I've gained a surrogate grandmother who insists on feeding me at least once a week. Mike laughed. Grandma has that effect on people. She says you work too hard and need home cooking. She's not wrong, Lisa admitted, standing. Speaking of work, I should let you get back to it. Think about the apprenticeship program, though. We could really make a difference with it. As they walked back into the main shop area, Mike was struck by how natural it felt to have Lisa there among the tools and engine parts. A year ago, she had seemed from another world entirely, the polished executive and the grease-stained mechanic, with nothing in common. Now he knew better. Beneath the different exteriors, they shared the same core values: hard work, integrity, helping others, honoring family legacies. Their partnership worked because it was built on mutual respect, not charity or obligation. Outside, the sign above the door gleamed in the sunlight, Harris Auto Repair, in the same font his father had chosen, but freshly painted and with Esther 1983 added proudly beneath. It was both old and new, honoring the past while embracing the future. As Lisa headed toward her car, she paused and turned back. You know, I never did ask, why did you stop that night? It was pouring rain, already dark. Most people would have driven right past. Mike considered the question. It was one he'd never really examined before. Honestly, it's what my dad would have done. He always said that kindness matters most when it's inconvenient. Lisa nodded, a warm smile spreading across her face. Your dad was a wise man. He was, Mike agreed, and I think he would have liked you. As Lisa drove away, Mike turned back to the busy shop, to Joe entering data, to Ray explaining something to a customer, to the apprenticeship proposal waiting on his desk. One simple act of kindness on a rainy night had rippled outward in ways he could never have imagined, touching not just his life but many others. The lesson wasn't lost on him. Sometimes the smallest choices, stopping instead of driving by, helping without expectation of reward, could change everything. Not through magic or miracle, but through the simple, powerful connection of one human being caring enough to help another. Mike rolled up his sleeves and headed back to work, ready to fix whatever needed fixing: cars, opportunities, futures. There was plenty of all three waiting for him now.